March 1999. I don't remember anything specific about my personal stuff, except I'm still working at Frame Art on the east side of Cleveland. So let's just jump right into the books that I read. And the first book I read in March of 1999 is The Wild Wild West, The Night of the Death Train by Robert Vaughn. Uh, and I talked about another one in an earlier video, another Wild Wild West book based on the TV series, not the shitty Will Smith movie. And in this one, our heroes, Jim West and Artemis Gordon, are trying to stop a group of saboteurs who are trying to destroy the fanciest locomotive in the West. And it's just good, pulpy fun. If you liked the old TV show, you'd probably enjoy this book. Next up, we have, this is the way I have it written, Book 2 of the Millennium Quartet, In the Mood, by Charles Grant. Let's see, did I read book 1 last month? Yes, there it was. So, if you watched the last video in this series, I talked a little bit about that book. Still don't remember anything, but didn't have a lot of information. Well, apparently, I looked up this one. Apparently, this book is about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, the end of the world. The first book was about death. This one is about famine. And serial killers. Our main character is this guy whose wife and son have left him because he's obsessed with mass murderers. And the description I read, something about a family reunion, but all the people that are gathering for this family reunion are leaving death in their wake. In the world, there are more mass murderers than ever at this time. And the priest from the first book finds the guy from this book so they can team up and hopefully stop the end of the world. And fish are dying, cattle's dying, crops are dying, famine. But it's Charles Grant, and now I'm intrigued. I'm interested in reading these again now because this one piqued my interest a little more than the other one does. I do like Charles Grant, but you know. Anyway, back to some pulpy goodness. We have Zorro and the Jaguar Warriors by Jerome Pressler. I don't know. And just an original Zorro novel. Zorro, it's the nobleman Don Diego. Kind of a, maybe could I compare him to Clark Kent? The description that I read said he's a foppish nobleman, but you know, the type of person you would never expect to be the exciting hero Zorro. And he's fighting bad guys. I don't know how the Jaguar Warriors fall into it. Looked things up, couldn't find any description really. But if you like Zorro, if you like a pulpy adventure, Zorro and the Jaguar Warriors. All right, then we have Why Not Me by Al Franken. And this is a fictional account of Al Franken's campaign to become president, his election, and he becomes president, and then he's president for 114 days. The country's first Jewish president, and he ran on a single platform of lower ATM fees. I believe it's epistolary, made up of diary entries, part of a Woodward book written about his presidency, of Woodward and Bernstein. Just different things, all sorts of different things put together to tell this fictional story of Al Franken becoming president. I've always found Al Franken very funny. This is a funny book. All right, now we're back to some Charles Grant, the Millennium, and this time it just says, doesn't say book 3, it just says the Millennium Quartet, Chariot by Charles Grant. This one is, let me double check, Plague. So there's a new version of smallpox, I think it is, that's dropping people left and right. And our priest and our guy from book 2 are looking for a new person to join their group to stop the end of the world. The only place that's not really being affected, is this the book? The only place not really being affected is Vegas. Yes, I think that's what I read. But again, the Four Horsemen, the end of the world, Charles Grant, should be good stuff. All right, then we have Comeback by Richard Stark. This is a Parker novel, and just a little trivia from the back of the book. After the publication of Butcher's Moon in 1974, Donald Westlake said of his pseudonym, Richard Stark proved to me that he had a life of his own by simply disappearing. He was gone. But nothing bad is truly gone forever, and Parker, see, it's the way they have this written is weird because it talks about Richard Stark with the pseudonym being gone, but then it goes into the character Parker. Nothing bad is truly gone forever, and Parker's as bad as they come, according to Westlake. One day in 1997, suddenly he came back from the dead with a chalky prison pallor. So, this is the first Parker book since 1974, came out in 1997. And yes, the character of Parker is back and badder than ever. And in this one, he's taking on, he's going to rob a revival, religious revival show. But of course, things aren't going to go as planned. And chances are, there's going to be people who are worse people than Parker. But it was great to have Parker back. And this started a little trend that worked for, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books in a row, I think. And we'll find out what that is shortly. Comeback by Richard Stark. All right, what did I read after that? A book that I have, but it is so buried, I did not dig it out to show you. That is The X-Files, Antibodies by Kevin J. Anderson. And so there's a death. Mulder and Scully go to investigate. And there's a guy who basically is creating nanotechnology. Little machines that can go inside a person, cure cancer, cure anything. And he has a son dying of leukemia, I believe. But another body turns up, destroyed from the inside out. Is somebody programming nanotechnology as a murder weapon? Mulder and Scully are going to find out. Or will they? Is the government interfering? What's going on? It's the X-Files. I have sort of started rereading these old X-Files novels. I read one last year or the year before. Again, they're buried, so it's kind of like when I get to them. So I will be rereading this one. But these novels aren't bad, especially if you're an X-Files fan. All right. Then we have Backflash by Richard Stark, the second book of Parker's comeback. And you'll notice we have Come Back and then Backflash. And I can tell you the next book in the series, it's not going to be in this video, is Flash Fire. And then the one after that is Fire or something. But anyway, that's the little thing he did with titles. Backflash. So Parker has rules. He's a bad guy, but he's got rules. One rule is don't take a job on a boat. You know, he's a thief, by the way, in case anybody doesn't know. Parker's a thief. Don't take a job on a boat. But there's a boat with a boatload of money, pun intended, And so Parker decides he's going to rob this boat, break his own rule. It's enough money that he's willing to break his own rule. Puts together a crew. He's got an inside person. But of course, again, things aren't going to go exactly the way Parker has planned. These books are so good. One of my favorite crime series of all time. Can't really say mystery, because that's not what they are. Love the Richard Stark Parker series. And I love that he came back. Although, I'd never heard of the character, nor read any of the books when the original run ended in 1974. I didn't start reading them till 89. I was in Iceland. But still, I think I was all caught up, or I had read everything I wanted to read. And then in 97, it came back and I jumped right on it. All right, then another book that I have, Samurai Cat Goes to Hell by Mark E. Rogers. Look at that beautiful cover. So this is, I believe, the final Samurai Cat book. And in it, essentially, our main character, Tomokato, the Samurai Cat, he dies and he goes to heaven. But his sidekick, his little kitty sidekick, Shiro, goes to hell. So Tomokato travels to hell to save his sidekick. And we're treated to a bunch of characters that we've seen in the previous books. Most especially, trying to keep that glare off of there, the Nazi dinosaurs. That glare is right there. Nazi dinosaurs. But the characters from, at least looking at the illustrations inside, we get the characters from Wizard of Oz that appeared previously. These books are absolutely hilarious. This one's a lot of fun. I have, let's see, The Adventures of Samurai Cat, Sword of Samurai Cat, maybe Samurai Cat Goes to the Movies. I think the one that I don't have is Samurai Cat in the Real World. Samurai Cat Goes to the Movies. I'm looking for that one. That one's great too. But these, yeah, very, very funny stories. A lot of satire. Good stuff. Samurai Cat Goes to Hell. Mark E. Rogers. All right, then we have Blood War, Masquerade of the Red Death, Part 1 by Robert Weinberg. This is the first in a trilogy, The World of Darkness, The Vampires, The Kindred. And there are two humans. I don't think I bothered to write their names down. Two humans, our main human characters that know about the vampires in the World of Darkness. And there's a mysterious vampire that goes by Red Death. And he's trying to bring about the end of the world. Gehenna. However you would pronounce it. Basically Ragnarok for vampires. And of course these humans... Ragnarok for vampires and humans. These humans want to stop it. Again, it takes place in the whole World of Darkness where you have different vampire tribes and very specific traits for most of them, for all of the tribes, but not necessarily everybody in that tribe. Some of them are rebellious. But interesting stuff, especially if you like the World of Darkness vampire stuff. All right, the penultimate book for March of 1999, Resume with Monsters by William Browning Spencer. I really, really like this book. I feel like I read it twice and didn't like it as much the first time, but really loved it the second time. We'll find out together if it shows up again. I don't recall. I don't think this is the second time it showed up. But basically, this is horror satire. It's the main character's name is Philip Keenan, and he bounces around from job to job to job, and he's writing a novel, and he has to keep rewriting it. At least he believes he has to keep rewriting it to keep the old ones of H.P. Lovecraft fame from coming into our world. Um, and somehow his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, gets involved, but there's weird, like, corporate stuff going on here with, like, the Xerox machine might be used to summon an old one kind of stuff. It's really weird. It's very much the kind of book where you have to decide, is it in his head or is it real? Is he just a crazy person? Um, and as I said, the last time I read it, I really, really enjoyed it. And I tend to like to think that it's real. Um, so, Resume with Monsters, William Browning Spencer, really enjoyable book. And then the final book that I read in March of 1999 is Unholy Allies, Masquerade of the Red Death Part 2 by Robert Weinberg. And in this one, our human people are basically searching for a specific vampire who may be able to uncover the identity of the Red Death. And the Red Death has made some sort of bargain with these fire creatures from another dimension to help him bring about his goals. So again, really wild, apocalyptic World of Darkness stuff. A lot of the World of Darkness books, at least that I have read, in the vampire series, Vampire the Masquerade series, I think are less apocalyptic than this. There's a lot of political infighting, a lot of vampire intrigue sometimes. Sometimes it's just vampires in the books. If there's any humans, they're just basically food. Sometimes there's human characters and the vampires and they interact, but the whole masquerade thing is the thing. But this trilogy is a much, much bigger story. Generally, I think it's been a long time since I read this stuff or had anything to do with Vampire the Masquerade. There's some board games I want to check out. But I think generally it's all just like the vampires want to blend in and live their lives, and they have their politics, as I said. But this one goes bigger with, again, someone trying to bring about the end of the world. So, fun stuff. That is it. That is all that I read in March of 1999. Once again, I have closed my book and not thought of a question, but glancing over here, I'm going to go with this. Is there a series that has ended that you would like to see come back? I cannot think of an answer off the top of my head. Nowadays, when a writer, I tend to think when a writer finds a series, they just write it until they die. And a lot of those authors end up, their characters continue with other authors writing them. Robert B. Parker is the first one that comes to mind. Although we could go as far back as like some of the Doc Savage stuff, some of the pulps, Tarzan. Publishers find notes or unfinished manuscripts and get somebody to finish them. But even putting the pulps aside, again, Robert B. Parker, his characters are continuing with different authors writing them. I know there's others. I know that V.C. Andrews died, and like she only wrote like 8 books. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a small number compared to how many V.C. Andrews books there are out there. And Andrew Niederman, I believe, has written however many hundred. the 8 that weren't actually written by V.C. Andrews are written by Andrew Niederman. But that's not quite the same thing. You could pick somebody like Brian Keene, who wrote, The Rising, City of the Dead, and then I'm trying to see covers. I can't read from this far away, but he's got a couple other, and selected scenes from the End of the World, The Rising, selected scenes, which is short stories. And then he did a novella set in that world, and then I think there's one other story, but he's finally returned. I believe he's a novel. I think there's going to be another novel set in the world of The Rising. Maybe it's short stories. I don't know, but he's returned to the world of The Rising. So that's sort of. I guess F. Paul Wilson wrote The Tomb, the first Repairman Jack book, and then it was a long, long time before he returned to that character. So that just gives you examples of what I'm talking about. It does not give me an answer for the question I have posed. And you know what? I do not have an answer for you. But it's my video. It's my privilege. I don't have to answer my own questions. You can't make me. If I think of one, of course, I'll put it in the comments or the description or something. But can you think of one? Can you think of a character or a series that ended, and not because of the death of the author, but a series or character that ended and you would like to see come back, as in the examples that I have given? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you care to follow me on other social media, on X, because of, at this time, Twitter is now X. Craziness. I didn't know if it was true or not. I saw a ton of people talking about it this morning. But then when I went to post a video on Twitter, it came up X. It still says tweet, but there's a big old X. Anyway, on Twitter, I'm at Ronan5757. On Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, it's Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I have for you this week. So until next week, read more books.